Hi folks, Patric Fharah back here at Old School Sports, where y'all know our motto is winning is more important than style points. I'll be back with you again. This is a special edition of Old School Sports. You know, we've been doing this for 18 years as we segue from football season to basketball season. We're going to start this basketball season with a special show that's been requested by a whole lot of people. It features two outstanding ball players here in Hudson County, and in particular in Jersey City. One was Dan Waddleton, who was a star here and then went on to play at St. John's, and the legendary Mike Rooney from Snyder High School, who has stories that really some we can't repeat on TV. But both outstanding ball players. We've had a request to show it again, and we will today on a special edition of Old School Sports. As spring finally breaks and all the signs of the season are about to change, there are some things that we really need to take notice of, like the geese flying back over Liberty State Park, kids taking out their new bikes that they received at Christmas, and two guys sometimes sitting on lawn chairs that you'll see sometimes all day and all night on Bergen and Montgomery Street at McGinley Square. You know, you might think these two jokers have nothing to do, but folks in and around Jersey City basketball circles know just who they are. Although Jersey City High School basketball remains at a level of respect around the state, there was a time when a Jersey City baller made teams a little nervous about competing against any public or parochial basketball team in Jersey City. Not just because it's uncomfortable playing to the inner city fears, but because winning wasn't likely. Names like George Blaney, Gerald Govan, Harry Laurie, Arnaldo Webster Sr., Willie Valentine Willis, and Charlie Brown, and these two guys holding court at McGinley Square in conversations about basketball, Jersey City, and anything else. Danny Waddleton and Mike Rooney.
Mike Rooney played at Snyder High School. He's currently the athletic director at County Prep. And without question, he is truly one of a kind, my friend, Mike Rooney.
My name is Mike Rooney. Probably before you people were born, I was a basketball player. I attended the University of Oklahoma, one of many schools that I attended, during the civil rights era. Is that guy still alive? Put him on. The guy gets on in Oklahoma, they talk funny. Y'all come back, that kind of stuff, right? So the guy says to me, do you remember you, Coach Rooney? He says, of course I remember you, the worst coach I ever played for. He says to me, I hear you're a counselor. I said, Coach, they lied to you. I'm a professor. Now he starts laughing. He's Rooney, you couldn't even spell professional yet. I said, well, I'm at County Prep now. They didn't ask me to spell it. I just called me professor.
Our next honoree fits right in that same mold as the other guy who I said is a character. This one's also a character. Danny Waddleton.
I'd like to congratulate all the inductees that are here tonight. Basketball has been tremendous to me. You know, growing up in Highland Gardens, remember when I was teaching in the public schools and the kids I taught at Ferris, Snyder, Dickinson, I taught at McNair. And then I became an alcohol and drug counselor in the whole city. So I did a lot of motivational speeches. The kids used to say to me, were you poor? I was like, poor? There was 9 of us living in 3 rooms. I said, we were so poor, when they broke in our apartment, they used to leave things instead of taking them. No, but you know what? You know what basketball is? I know everybody in this room. I either played with them, I coached them, I coached against them, Xavier Hurley, Charlie Brown, coached my oldest son when he went to the Final Four in Jersey City State. My son Danny was the point guard. Basketball is Jersey City. I remember Charlie Brown, Harry Laurie, Govan. We'd have a couple of beers after we got to playing these other leagues in the city. We'd be going down to Freddie's Lounge, the TCB, Chico. I'll tell you one quick story. Rooney and I, after we played in the county championship in high school, then we got out of college, we never played against each other. I was a passer, he was a shooter.
Old school sports where winning is more important than style points. And we talk about basketball in Jersey City and its element in terms of bringing ball players together. You know, it's not this Jersey City was known as a basketball haven. Teams would not come into this county on Jersey City because they knew what was going to happen. You were sure not to get a win. They wanted the aspect of inner city surroundings kind of intimidate some people, but more importantly, they were not going to be successful on the court. Well, there's a legacy of how that happened here in Jersey City. Today, we're going to talk with two people attached to that legacy, guys who really helped put Jersey City on the map basketball-wise. First, we're going to talk to Dan Waddleton, went to St. Michael's from Jersey City, grew up in the Holland Gardens. And of course, everybody knows Mike Rooney, who grew up in Curry Woods, played at Snyder High School. We're going to talk about some basketball, talk about the good times when basketball was really king here in Jersey City. Guys, you know, we've been trying to get this conversation for a long time, and we finally got it going. First of all, I was told before we get started, in terms of this conversation, if we talk about basketball, we can't talk about defense for either one of you guys. That's what I was told. Dan, tell me, we're going to talk about for some folks who might not know your career, where you started out in Holland Gardens. Talk about that.
Yeah, I grew up in the Holland Gardens. I was one of 9 children, raised by a single parent. And fortunately, I had a brother that was really a really good athlete, and I just followed in his footsteps. And I was fortunate enough to play on a little bitty basketball team, like Little League Baseball. And I played with a guy named Vinny Ernst, and we won 2 United States championships 2 years in a row. And from there, we just kept getting better and better, and, you know, because of the basics that we were taught as youngsters.
Now, we just can't just go past Vinny Ernst and name Vinny Ernst. What Vinny Ernst did and what you guys did in terms of later on really set a precedent for high school basketball across the country. Now, the old Roosevelt Stadium, which had about 24,000 people, back in '61, something happened that changed the whole fabric of what high school basketball teams or tournaments do today.
Yeah, well, I played in the game, the high school All-American game, the East-West game, and players like Connie Hawkins and Roger Brown and Cotton Nash and Jumpin' Joe Caldwell, and it was phenomenal. It was a great experience. And but speaking about Vinny Ernst, he was a year ahead of me, and he was one of the greatest point guards that ever come out of Hudson County, bar none. He had a tremendous career.
And he played for Providence and won the NIT MVP. But that game we talked about was played at Roosevelt Stadium outdoors.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, Connie Hawkins didn't make the first quarter. He was graduating that night, and fortunately we kept the score close. But when he came, we wound up winning by like 30 points. He was the original Michael Jordan of his time. He was phenomenal.
Now, how did you get selected?
Well, I was lucky. My high school team,
St. Michael's over in Union City.
I was the first player to get into 4 Hudson County championships in high school. So a man named Sam Kaplan was part of running that high school program. And although I wasn't a prolific scorer, my teams won a lot. So, you know, he picked me to be in the game. And I was fortunate. I got picked one of the top 5 players after the game was over.
You knew how to play the game. Now we're going to go into Mike, who grew up in Curry Woods. Mike, everybody knows who you are around the town. Talk about the growth from Curry Woods to how that started.
To give you a feel what I'm about, I'll throw out some names, and then we'll tell little stories about them. Los Angeles Lakers, St. Bonaventure, University of Oklahoma, a pro athlete for 5 years in the Eastern Basketball League, Eastman Kodak, and County Prep High School. Because of sports, I've had an opportunity to experience all that. All right? I got drafted by the Lakers. I was at the University of Oklahoma, and I went out and tried out with the Lakers. I got cut. I was going to go back to Oklahoma, which is a whole other world.
We're going to talk about Oklahoma in a minute.
They got me. They told me they had a farm team in New Jersey, and that's how I came back to New Jersey.
Now, Mike, I always point to you when it comes to terms of why ball players have to do certain things to be prepared. I often talk about on Virginia Avenue, in West Side, which was your park, you could be seen shooting the basketball all night long. Now, some kids talk to me today about, well, I want to get to the another level. But if they don't have that kind of dedication that you had, they can forget it, which is why, by far, you're the most prolific shooter this county and this city has ever had. Talk about how that aspect would work for you.
When I was a kid, that's all we did was play basketball, all right? I was a terror at Bayside Park. And what happened, we used to go down to Virginia area to play those guys, all right? This year, we had to go down to Robbinsville for the state thing. And one of the guys sitting up there was kind of staring at me. You know, we would have to try and get a kid eligible. And I looked at him. I said, why are you staring at me? You know, he says, are you Mike Rooney? I said, yeah. He said, are you from Jersey City? I said, yeah. I said, why? He said, when I was a young guy, he says, I was trying to be a lawyer. I was studying. There was some nut in Bayside Park at 1 o'clock in the morning, dribbling the ball every night, and I used to call the cops on him. I said, you were the guy. He said, how did you get the ball back and show up the next night? I said, I went to Snyder High School. The police station was right next to it. I would go there the next day and tell the sergeant that I was robbed. A cop robbed my basketball. And he would give me the ball and say, if you don't go to bed at 10 o'clock tonight, we're going to shoot this basketball. All right? The basketball was my life. We would go to Virginia Avenue. They had nets. We would steal their nets and bring them up to Bayside Park. All right? But what happened, one of the fellows came from Virginia Avenue and cut our basket down, so we stopped that stuff. All right? We made a peace. But at that time, the Mecca was Audubon Park.
Yes.
Audubon Park was heaven, Coach.
You know, one of the things about Audubon Park, what people don't know today, of course they restructured it. At the Summer League in Audubon Park was just as prolific as the Rucker over in New York. Guys, talk about that because both of you guys played in it.
Yeah, after my senior year in high school, I was chosen to play with George Blaney, Vinny Ernst, a kid named Bobby McLaughlin, and we had a real group of good play. We played Adels All-Star team from Newark.
Adels from Newark.
Yeah, from the championship team, and we wound up beating them. And basketball was, the players in this county was just unbelievable, especially in Jersey City.
Now, we're talking about Dixon High School in 1953. Now, everybody knows about St. Anthony's, what they've done in terms of Division I ball players. But you told me in 1953, Dickinson had 5 Division I basketball players.
Yes, they did. They had a guy named Yokel, Cameron, both went to Clemson. Dom Flora went to Washington Lee, scored 2,000 points there. JoJo Stice went to Citadel. Mark Benstein, high scorer in West Point. Of course, back then he scored over 1,000 points. And even when Mike and I were playing, every night you played, there was somebody on a team that was a Division I player, at least, in every public school.
You know, and now the parochial public schools battled because of the fact that everybody had somebody. Now, Mike, I remember when I was a kid, following Snyder High School, because my brother was an athlete here, and I had to follow him where he went. The days of you and Joe Govan and Pete DeLisa playing in a small gym. Imagine this, the folks who've been to Snyder. The small gym downstairs, that's where you played the varsity games. Talk about that.
When we came to Snyder, Snyder never won in anything, all right? We would play St. Peter's Prep in football the first game of the season and get slaughtered, all right? We were the first group that really took off, all right? We won like 20 games in a row. We started playing in that small gym downstairs, but it got too big, and then they moved us to other places. We played at Jersey City State, and we played a lot of games in the Army.
In the Army, that's
where they'd get 4,000 or 5,000 people.
Repeat that, 4,000 or 5,000. This is no joke.
Game, yeah.
4,000 or 5,000 folks came to the high school on a regular basis.
Yeah, we played Danny's team for the county championship. It had to be like 6,000 or 7,000 people.
Easy.
We played St. Peter's Prep in a playoff, and it was 4,000 or 5,000 people. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable experience.
Now, we're going to kind of move on, Mike, to talk about Oklahoma. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about Oklahoma for a couple of reasons. Guys who I played with, Mike Rubino was an excellent baseball player at Snyder, and Gary DeFilippo, who tried to play baseball at Snyder, but he was at Oklahoma too. Yeah. One of the things that happens when you go to a school, a Division I school, if you present yourself well, they usually come back. Now, the reason I got to Ohio State to participate was the fact that my main man, Ray Green, got me to come out there. Now, after Gary DeFilippo, Mike Rubino, and yourself went out there, Oklahoma has never come back to Jersey City. Tell us why.
Maybe it's because of me. How I got to Oklahoma, I got thrown out of St. Bonaventure, and I was up Audubon Park, and there was a guy named Alfred T. Ashback III from Fulton and Ocean Avenue. Fulton and Ocean. That's where Al's a legend out in Oklahoma now. He has a radio. Yeah, he has a radio show. He's like the Mike Francesco of Oklahoma. Well, I would go up Audubon Park and shoot for hours, and Al would be up there and he'd rebound. And he say, Mike, you mind if I take a shot? I said, Al, let's understand something. We all got roles in life. You're a rebounder, I'm a shooter. Shut up and keep rebounding. And I said to him, I said, Al, where you going? He says, I'm going to Oklahoma. So I was only fooling with him. I said, maybe you can get me in there. Well, a week later, he come back to me and said, they called. I said, who called? He's Oklahoma. They want to talk to you. Well, my parents didn't have a phone. So I had to go to his house, and they called me, all right? So things worked out, and I was going to go there. So they had somebody meet me in front of the Holland Tunnel.
Holland Tunnel over that downtown.
Right. So I'm standing there. I got a basketball one arm, and I got about 7 magazines, 4 magazines under my other arm. Guy pulls up. He says, are you Mike Rooney? I said, yeah. He says, where's your clothes? I said, I got them on. He said, get in the car. All right. We drove all the way out to Oklahoma.
Right then?
Right then. We drove all the way to Oklahoma. So when we got there, they never saw me play. All right. And they told me that you have to pay tuition because you're ineligible. And I didn't have any money. So what happened that night, we played, all right, and they saw me. It was a whole different story now, all right? Mm-hmm. They told me, in the morning, you're going to have breakfast with somebody. So we met in a little diner there, and I met this fella, all right? And the coach was there, and we shook hands, and the coach left. And then the fella there gave me some money.
And it wasn't $2?
No, it was a lot of money, all right? And that paid for my tuition. And what he said, they tell me you got no clothes, all right? He says, I'm going to give you a job with my company, all right? So I got the job there. I never went to work, you know. I would show up on payday to get the check. Oklahoma's a whole different world, all right? This southern guy comes out and says, yo, boy. I said, yeah, you talking to me? He says, yeah. He says, you got to be working here. I said, working? What are you talking about? He says, you're a plumber. I said, who told you I'm a plumber? I'm a basketball player, you know? So what happened, the guy called me up and we sat down. And he actually owned a ranch with cattle and horses. And he wanted me to go out there on Sundays and cut the grass. When I went out there, it was like a football field. I looked at him and said, are you out of your mind? There's cows out there. And I used to throw rocks at the cows.
Get out
and
of
he
here.
said to me, don't be messing with that cattle. They're going to turn around and get you. And I said, what's with Trigger there, the horse? He keeps looking at me, you know. I became such good friends with the guy that I wound up living on the ranch for a month.
Get out of
with
here.
him, yeah. And what happened, they took really good care of me. When I was in Oklahoma, I had a Mustang. I was one of the best dressed kids in the school, all right?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard from them in years, all right? They were going to go to Europe. These people had money. And they tried to get in touch with me. They called the Jersey City Police Department. They said, yeah, that's Rooney, the nut up at Dickinson. Go up there. So he actually got in touch with me, all right? And they came and they wanted me to meet him in Kennedy Airport. I said, Coach, that's another state. All right? I live in New Jersey. So we worked something out, and they were going to meet me, all right? And they came in, and he was 2 hours late with an Arthur's Steakhouse. Well, he come in, he had the cowboy hat on, the boots. I said, oh, man, this guy looks like the Midnight Cowboy, all right? So we sit down, and we got drunk. We had a great time. I thanked him. I said, because of you people, I had a nice lifestyle. I really thank you. Well, now the check comes. I reach for the check. He grabs my arm. He's an older man, right? He says, what are you doing, Mike? I said, I'm taking care of this. You took care of me. He said, you never spent a nickel in Oklahoma. You're not going to start now. But what was funny, he said he wanted to know what I did. And at that time, I was in charge of the homeless program.
Yeah.
So I took him to St. Lucy's. And I locked the car and told his wife to stay there. Different kind of people, different colors. I took him upstairs, and there was like 10 guys, 20 guys, 30 guys sleeping on the floor yelling, Jesus is coming, right? He's, let's get out of here, you know? He went back to Oklahoma and told him I was homeless.
Oh, get out of here.
Right. And you won't believe it, I heard from Oklahoma. That's just unbelievable. They said, we got a job for you in recreation out here in Norman. We got a poem. Come on out here, we'll take care of you. I said, listen, you idiots, I'm not homeless. I'm in charge of the homeless program. Oklahoma was just a great experience.
Danny, tell me about how you got to St. John's and what happened in there.
Well, I was being recruited by a lot of schools, Miami, Duke, North Carolina, South Carolina, Carolina State. And, if I was going to go away, I was probably going to go to Miami or Duke. And if I was going to stay home, I was going to go to NYU, which had a great program back then, along with St. John's. The final decision was when Conesecca came to my house, saw the conditions.
Louis Conesecca now.
Lou Conesecca, came to the house and saw the conditions. And he said to my mother and my brother, who was a captain of Holy Cross College, 7 years older than me, we'll guarantee that he gets his degree, whether if it takes him 5 or 6 years, and that's the exact reason why I went there.
Mm-hmm. Now you told me in the past about the fact that you had 9 kids in your family. A lot of kids today want to make that excuse for not maybe doing as best they could because we have a lot of kids. But that could be a plus for you, anybody else.
Well, we were fortunate that we had a tremendously strong mother. My father died when she was 38 years old. And she was pregnant, and I was 4, and June was 5, Katie was 6, right up to 15. So, you know, fortunately she lived to be 91, but her whole theme was, listen, he died, there's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is get up every day and outwork people. And that's what we did. And all the kids were very successful, I got to say.
Now, I know you guys played against each other at St. Michael's in terms of it being competitive on the court, but after that, you guys never played against each other. Why is that?
I never knew Mike growing up because don't forget I'm from downtown by the Holland Tunnel. He was from Greenville, but we both heard of each other. And then finally we got to play against each other in a high school game, and then actually we still weren't close until after college, and then we both went to work for the same. We both became investigators for the welfare department in Hudson County, and that was in 1966. And we've been like brothers, not friends. We're like brothers. I mean, whenever something happens to him, I'm there. Whenever something happens to me, he's there.
You know, we're gonna go back to Audubon Park. In the summertime, when I was a kid, that was recreation in terms of watching you guys play. Mike, Harry Laurie, and Webster, and Govan, Charlie Brown, and the competition they had in that league. Talk about that league, Mike, and what went on and how you lit it up.
Audubon was Mecca, right? There was a team called the Fulton AC, which was made up of
that's right.
The guys that Danny's talking. That's Vinny Ernst, who was a great, great player. This nut named Bobby McLaughlin. Big go van, all right? That was the first team we were on, and we never lost a game there. And during the week, how it worked at Audubon Park is that they had a regular league Monday to Thursday, and then on Friday they would pick the All-Star team, and we played in Norks and stuff like that, all right? After 2 years, Ernst and them got involved with the Providence and stuff, so we kind of changed, and the Bondsman took over, which is Harry.
Right, Bondsman.
And I integrated that team.
That's right. We'll talk about that.
Charlie had a father-in-law, I don't know where he found these games. We played all over the place. We actually played the Globetrotters.
That's right. Charlie Brown told me about that.
And we beat the Globetrotters. All right?
Right, and there was 6,000 folks in the Armory.
You couldn't get in. You couldn't. I have a picture. I have a picture of us all lined up, all the brothers and me. But those are the guys I grew up with. You know.
Now you were able to make that transformation to be involved with people who didn't look like you in other parts of the country in Oklahoma. Talk about that and how easy it was because of the fact that you just made a way to make people feel comfortable.
Right. We played basketball a long time ago, right? And when I went to Oklahoma, they were starting to integrate the school. They were bringing black kids in, but they were Southern kids, okay? What happened, the black guys, I'll give you a little story here. The black guys had a reunion last year, all right? I get a call from this guy, Howie Johnson. I said, Howie, who is this? He says, you nut, it's the guy that fought you in the field house, you know? I said, Howie, where are you, nut? What do you want? He says, the black guys are having a reunion. I said, you're kidding me. He said, how come you're not here? I said, you're not, I'm white. That's why I'm not here, you know? So we started laughing. He says, you got to be here. You're one of us, all right? And he had the coach there, all right? I said, that guy's still alive? Put him on the phone, you know? So the guy gets on. He says, how y'all doing, Mickey? I said, good, coach. He said, remember me? I said, how can I forget you? You're the worst coach I ever played for, you know? He says, they tell me you're a counselor. I said, Coach, I'm a professor at a school called County Prep. He started laughing. I said, what are you laughing about? He said, you can't even spell professor. I said, Coach, they don't ask me to spell it. They just call me professor, you know? But Oklahoma was just a great experience, all right? I roomed with a black fellow at Oklahoma, all right? And we would play all over the place. And we were playing in Kansas City, all right? I'll give you a quick little story about it. And during the games, I would fool with the people in the stands, all right? There were 20,000 people watching the game, and they're screaming, you're a bum, Rooney. And I said, yo, Hero, how much it cost you to get in here? You're getting your money. Well, shut up. So we're leaving. You got to understand, Howie's from the South. We go outside the auditorium, and the guy's waiting for us.
Get out of here.
I says, Howie, come in my back. That's the guy we were arguing with in the stands. So the guy comes up to us. He introduces himself and says he's a lawyer, and he wanted to take us to the Playboy Club. I said, we got no money. He said, you're my guest. Howie says, what am I doing with you? Like, no, we're going to the Playboy Club. Well, that we stayed there till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, right?
Get out of here.
We came back, the assistant coach was sitting in the lobby of the hotel with 2 plane tickets. So we got thrown off the team. So naturally, I went in, I said to the guy, hey, coach, get upstairs. I won't tell anybody you're down here. You're safe. He said, you 2 clowns are off the team. You've been suspended. Howie says to me, why did I get involved with you? But 40 years later, the guy's calling me.
Get out of here.
All right, that's
Guys,
great.
what is about Jersey City athletes at the time you grew up to make them special?
Well, just like Mike was saying, my best friend on St. John's was Donnie Burks, a black guy who was my really best friend, man. And he had the lead role in Hair after he left St. John's.
Yeah.
And he died a couple of years ago, and I went up to the funeral up in Harlem. Coach Conasecker, of course, got up to speak, and he said I was the only white guy in the whole auditorium, and he said the guy in the back there was his partner. They were like ebony and ivory. See, we never looked at color. You know, we just, everybody was the same when we played ball, man. We grew up the same way. I mean, everybody grew up the same way. So we lived in a special time.
Yeah.
I mean, we really did. Music, sports, everything. I mean, it was just a good time to grow up.
You know, I want to talk about the fact that when you guys were coming up, in terms of how you have to apply yourself to be good. I'm always talking about that, and I will constantly focus on guys who want to be good but don't put in the time.
Yeah, well, I was growing up in a project. We had a project league, 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Booker T, Lafayette, Marion, Hudson, Montgomery, Holland. I played against Charlie Mays all the time, Little League baseball and basketball. But from the project league, I'd run down to number 5 school. We had a CYO grammar school team. From number 5 school, I'd run up to the CYO to play in a biddy league. Every night I was in a gym. If it wasn't 37, about 5 blocks from where I lived, over on Erie and like 9th Street, I'd run up the viaduct and play up at number 6 school at night. And so we were playing basketball all the time. Plus, in the afternoon, we had recreation leagues up in number 6. I mean, the kids were busy and playing all the time. And being that we didn't have a biddy team down, I lived in a poor neighborhood. You know, we didn't have a biddy team at all, nothing. So Mr. Dwayne, who wound up coaching the team that won the United States Championship 2 years in a row, he picked me up every Sunday, and we played games all over the state. And you know, we were just playing all the time. And you know, a lot of kids come out of those programs. Dr. Tolentino,
That's right.
Lou Rotino became the best, probably one of the best football coaches
With the Green Bay Packers in Villanova.
time. And you just talked about, of course, Ernst. He was Mr. Biddy and MVP of the NIT, and you had Dr. Rotella. You had Mr. Cosgrove, who taught, I believe, out in Ohio State. Richie Cosgrove. I mean, there was a lot of kids that got a lot out of it besides basketball, you know. But they had the discipline. You know, I tell people, I coached later at Dickinson High School. When you go someplace for 2 to 3 hours that somebody else isn't, that's discipline.
That's true.
You have to be there, and you're showing up, and you're going to get something out of this if you work hard.
Mike, you had an opportunity to meet one of the all-time legend coaches of all time, from UCLA, Coach Wood. Talk about how that situation happened here at Snyder.
Okay, I was a young kid at Snyder High School, and I was really shy. I was scared of girls and stuff like that.
Oh, no, get out of here.
I'm on the second floor, right? And this guy comes walking up in a suit. And he says, "Are you Mike Rooney?" He's in a suit. I didn't know. I said, "No, I'm not Mike Rooney." So what happened, he went down there, and he went to the principal, Mr. Cottero's office. And I heard my name over the loudspeaker, and I had to go to the principal's office. I went down there. The guy's sitting there. I thought he was a cop. All right? So what happened, he was the head recruiter for UCLA. All right? And when I was at Snyder, I had 80 scholarships. All right? And they invited me to go to California. Now, I lived in Covey Woods. All right? My mother says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Los Angeles." She said, "Get out of here," all right? I didn't have any clothes, all right? So what happened, my family got together. I had my cousin's pants on, my uncle's coat, my other uncle's hat, and I flew to California. When I get off the plane, it was 90 degrees. The guy comes up to me, "John Wooden." "You must be the kid from New York. What'd you expect it to snow here?" All right? I met Wooden. I spent the weekend there, and I met Bob Hope. We went to dinner together and stuff like that. I had a chance to go to UCLA. I would have been on those national championship teams if I went there. But what I didn't like about UCLA, they had a lot of kids. And some of them were complaining they weren't playing. It was really big. I also had a chance to go to St. Bonaventure. And St. Bonaventure was 5th in the country at the time. They flew me and my father up to Buffalo. And when we got there, it was a whole nother situation. There was only 10 kids on the team. And 2 of them were backcourt kids and they were seniors. So they would have graduated, I would have started right away. The kids at St. Bonaventure were graduating, and I wasn't a genius, right? So what happened, I wound up going to St. Bonaventure, and it was the best thing I did in my life because I went to Bonaventure for 2 years. I really went to school, when I first got there, it snowed quite a bit, and I didn't go to class. And they had
Why not?
Well, it was a blizzard out there. I didn't think you go to school in a blizzard. So they had this priest come to my door, Father. He's banging on the door. I said, Father, get in here. There's a blizzard out there. You could get sick. He's, listen, you idiot. We go to school here every day and on Saturday. Get up, you're going to class, all right? But I had 2 years of real good stuff. I had 2 years of Latin, 2 years of Spanish, 2 years of history. When I got to Oklahoma, all right, I really was ahead of myself. So my first year at Oklahoma, they put in the paper that I was on the honor roll. But what I took at Oklahoma my first year was theory of football, theory of baseball, first aid, where the instructor hit me in the head with a piece of chalk and cut me. He said, you don't have to come to class anymore. You got an A. All right, and that got my grade points up. But a place like Bonaventure really got me to the degree. Oklahoma is so big. It was like UCLA. You could get lost in the shuffle that education was.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the position of point guard which you played. And I've been talking about this last couple of years with people, and I haven't been able to, and I've gotten several answers. I want your perspective on it. We haven't had a point guard in Jersey City the last couple of years that's been dynamic because of the fact of various reasons. Tell me from your perspective how the position should be played, because that was your focus on understanding the game.
Well, first thing is a point guard, you gotta have a leadership role. You got to be a leader, and I think it all starts from that position. And then I always played point guard. Mike was always a two guard, so we hit it off. It was perfect because I like to pass the ball, and Mike liked to shoot the ball.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a second.
So it worked out perfect, And then at the end of the game, he'd give me the ball, and by that time he probably had 30, 35. I told you the one game he scored 58, and I didn't score a point. We beat a heck of a team, an all-star team from the Eastern League, like Mike said.
With Jim Boeheim on it.
Well, Walt Simon, they had Pickles Murphy, they had Stacy Arsenault, they had Hal Greer's brother, Tony Greer, Dexter Westbrook, the big 6'10" guy from Providence, and nobody thought we were going to beat them, but we beat them. And but it all starts, like I said, with the leadership. But of course, it's all skills. I mean, you got to develop skills at an early age. It's something that has to be taught. I used to work with two balls all the time, dribbling two balls up and down the floor, and just so I know that if I go out and play somebody, I want to be competitive. I want to win. So I'm always working on my strength, all right? But when you're not playing somebody, you better be out there working on your skills. So if you're working with two balls up and down the floor, pulling back if the press is coming, go this way with the ball, go back this way. You're always working on your weak hand. And see, kids don't do that today. It's just like him. I tell people, you want to be a good shooter, you got to shoot 600 shots a day. You want to be a good ball handler, you got to be out there practicing 3-4 hours a day. There's no secret to this stuff. And the other thing is, I used to tell kids, how did you get good? Well, everybody's in the gym. The coach is teaching everybody the same thing. They're going home, and we were going to another gym or another playground. That's how you get better. There's no secret to it. So it's all work ethic.
Mike, I've said before, I'll say it 1,000 times, best shooter I've ever seen come out this county. And your particular philosophy on shooting, talk about that.
It's funny that we even get off that. It's funny you just mentioned Boeheim's name. That's the guy that coaches Syracuse.
You call him Boeheim.
Boeheim, right? A couple years ago, he was here in Jersey City recruiting somebody from St. Anthony's, the fabulous program down there. And I told Hurley, I said, I spanked him one night for 58 in the Eastern League. In the Eastern League, I was getting paid $200 a game, right?
$200 a game?
Yeah, it was big money in those days. Hurley said that Boeheim said I was full of it. I never got 58 of them. Well, I had the clipping from the Trenton Colonial. I cut it out and gave it to Hurley. We sent it back to that idiot, Yeah. And he said, Rooney didn't get the 58 of me. He got it off Austin from Boston College, But that Eastern League was heaven for me. That was a basketball junkie world. It was unbelievable, the stuff that happened down there.
One of the things about playing, in terms of playing here in Jersey City, going back to Audubon Park, is the fact that the competition level was so intense that it had to make you better. I think guys, now the AAU was taken over to some extent, but talk about how intense that was and how important it was for your own development.
Well, my brother, was an old state player at St. Peter's Prep, in 1953. So now and then I was an all-state player in 1960. So when I'd hang around with him when I was 13 years old, and he played with Tommy Heinsohn. Tommy Heinsohn, six rings with the Celtics. So I'd follow these guys, and you know what? If they didn't have a fifth man, I was the point guard. So, you're playing against guys that age, When I went to high school, it was pretty easy, playing against guys my own age. It's just that we were always playing against guys older. He's mentioning Bobby McLaughlin, Vinny Ernst. They were all 2 or 3 years older than him. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing against that kind of competition, and then you come to high school and you're playing against guys your age, guess what? It's going to work.
A step ahead.
You step ahead.
And that's one of the things at Audubon Park that I was primarily a football player, better baseball player than anything, but I primarily played football. And when I went to play basketball over at Audubon Park, I'd never get in the games. I didn't get at basketball as I got in college because of the fact that if you couldn't play, you didn't go on the court. Mm-hmm. If you couldn't play, you had to watch guys play. You couldn't call five. And if you got the game when they needed somebody, you have to handle the ball and pass it. You could not shoot. Like we played against Mike in the old YMCA 3-on-3 when you and the Ungerman and the other guys. Tell you, we couldn't beat them because these guys had a basketball IQ and understanding of the game that was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Mike, talk about those days of YMCA where guys used to challenge you all the time.
The Y was another trip, right? I was playing in the Eastern League on the weekends, all right, and I was getting paid. I was getting $200 a game. I would go to the Y to prepare for the Eastern League, all right, to be in shape. I got my money's worth. I'd go there 3 times a day. I'd be there at 9 o'clock in the morning shooting. I'd go there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon shooting, all right? And then at night we'd go up there and play ball, But I was so much in better shape and practicing 600 jump shots and stuff like that it really wasn't a good matchup for
now, I know young guys still want to challenge you today in terms of shooting. Talk about how some of these numbers
I run the lead of Dickens. There's nobody going to outshoot me. What are you talking about? I'm serious about that. There's nobody going to outshoot me. Even now, I'm 67 years old, all right? I'm up Dickinson every night. I take 100 shots every night. I can still shoot.
After all these years.
Yeah, I'm a basketball guy. It's sad. I don't even want to talk about this, but you read in the paper where these schools are talking about eliminating sports. Mm-hmm. That's a sad day for Jersey City, especially a guy like me. It breaks my heart. What we're talking about here, we're trying to make it fun, but I had some lifestyle.
And what sports did for you to do what you had to do?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Guys, one more question. If there's one thing that all the years that you guys have been together, that you can remember that best points to where your friendship lasts, do you have one in particular?
Yeah, I do. Let me go first before Danny.
Sure. Yeah.
We, like you're talking about, when we got out of college, all right, we had this job, all right? It was my first job ever, all right? I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was sitting there. I was reading the manual, all right? This nut walks in at 11 o'clock, all right? He goes in the bathroom. He comes out. He's your Rooney. I was your Wild. He says, let's go have breakfast. We've never worked since, all right? But the thing that when I think of Danny is that, remember, there was only 8 NBA teams at the time, all right? So that Eastern League was big time, and I was there for 5 years, and I got paid a lot of money. Danny and I would get together with his guys from St. John's, and we'd play, and there was a lot of tournaments, and we played in all these tournaments, all right? We played in this thing called the Mount Carmel tournament, and we got to the semifinals, and they had an all-star team from the Eastern League, all right? And Danny picked up this Dexter Westbrook guy, a 6'9" guy. We had the guys from St. John's. I said, Danny, what's this clown doing here? Get rid of him. We got our own guys, all right? So the team we played was called Snooky Sugar Bowl. It was an all-star team from the Eastern League that I knew were great players, all right? So the guy Snooky comes in, he's a little midget, all right? He gets Dexter 50, all right? Dexter comes over to Danny and says, what are you giving me? Danny says, get lost, you idiot. That's the last check you're ever going to accept. We played an all-star team from the Eastern League, and we beat them. I had 55. Danny hit 18 foul shots in a row. He was standing at the half court yelling, go back, no! It was just a great experience. I'll never forget it.
55 points, people can't imagine that today.
Without a three-point line.
That's it. They have no clue what scoring 55 points is.
I was a shooter.
They have no clue what, 55 points is a lot of points.
You know what? They don't understand, Pat, how to play the game. When I played with Mike, I was the second best shooter on the team. He was the first. And if you want to win, and he's open and I'm open, he gets the shot. But he understood at the end of the game, when the game was over and he didn't have to score anymore, give me the ball. I'll end it on a foul line. We knew how to play. We knew each other. We knew each other's strengths. And that's what they don't do today. The kids don't understand. Just like you were talking before, kids are power forward. He wants to play point guard. A kid's a center. He wants to be the shooter. You got to understand the game.
That's true. That's true. Guys, this has been fun. I've been looking for this for a long time. Not only that it says two things. It says where basketball is going, where it's been, and what's going on, but friendship, which is the most important thing about it. Friendship, education, and lasting friendships to maintain who you are and what you're about. Hopefully, guys, you enjoyed this. We enjoyed it. The fact that Mike Rooney and Dan Waddleton here talking about basketball in Jersey City. Jersey City was a hotbed. Don't get it twisted, all right? Thank you for joining us. Patric Fharah, Old School Sports.
Solid.
Mustang Sally. Guess you better slow your Mustang down. Oh Lord, what I said now. Mustang Sally now, baby. Oh Lord, guess you better slow your Mustang down. Oh yeah. You've been running all over town now. Oh, I guess I have to put your flat feet on the ground. What I said now. Listen, all you wanna do is ride around Saturday. Ride Saturday. All you wanna do is ride around Saturday.
We'd like to thank you for watching this special edition of Old School Sports featuring Mike Rooney and the late Dan Waddleton. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Be back for some more here on Old School Sports and JCE TV.